We have 5 entrepreneurs. We pick 5 entrepreneurs. They will come one after the other on the stage and talk about how they came up with their business idea, what challenges they encountered, how they succeeded in their business. Just for 5 to 7 minutes. Just before I invite them, just let me take this opportunity myself to tell you my story with regard to this study. Last year we had the annual development conference on the reform needed for Ethiopia, what Ethiopia looks like by 2030. And this year when we picked the topic, Ali asked me, in Ethiopia, businesses are focusing on trade. Businesses are focusing on real estate. He asked me, why not in manufacturing? Then I tried to convince him, manufacturing has a lot of risk. While businesses look for profit and they prefer blue chip businesses where they can easily get profit. And then we agreed to take this year's theme to be Ethiopia transitioning from trade to manufacturing. Because why manufacturing? Because as you can see in the paper, manufacturing is a core idea, the core for structural transformation. And without structural transformation, we cannot create adequate jobs for the young population. We cannot generate foreign exchange. We cannot have technology transfer. So then, while we are progressing in the paper, we presented to our boss, the big boss, our progresses, and he said, "You guys are Addis Ababa bubbles. You don't travel, you don't see what's going on at the ground." And then we decided to have field visits. Ali and I visited the Hawassa Industrial Park. My understanding about the industrial park was, well, it's an investment, like foreign investment for export, generating jobs. I didn't know much, but only reading reports. When I visited the park, I was impressed as well. Invested in 130 hectares of land with expansion up to 300 hectares. Occupancy rate was up to 80%. There was some labor issues, but slowly they were handling it, attaching remunerations based on performance, based on attendance, and was doing well, but unfortunately because of the confluence of shocks, starting with the COVID and the investors' appetite declined, and some of now currently producing very low capacity, but it's a huge investment. If that investment had been also supported by local investors, domestic investors, would have been better, but it was doing well, but could have done much better and can do better if problems are fixed. Subsequently, we visited the Yirgalem Agro-Industrial Integrated Industrial Park. The park had 11 models, well-structured clusters, the cereal clusters, the fruits and vegetables, the honey, coffee, and so on. But we were lucky we made the coffee cluster, coffee investor, Hebron Coffee, an Italian investor, and we talked to him, and he was producing capsules, the first of its kind in Africa, a very high-value coffee packaging. And the guy told us, if attention is given, if there is a vision in the coffee sector, Ethiopia can make miracle. So what I learned from that visit is a closer attention to this industrial park or the integrated park. Ethiopia can make difference in the manufacturing sector. Subsequently, again, we visited the Mekelle Industrial Park. There are 15 sheds constructed on 75 hectares of land with expansion up to 1,000 hectares. They were doing very well with foreign companies, 80–90% foreign investors, but unfortunately due to the war, all of them closed and they went. Upon our discussion with the manager, these investors have the interest to come back and restart, but they need assurance in terms of the risks, and they also need some of the incentives that they were given the time lapse, the incentives to be extended, and that industrial park was generating employment for up to 4,500 young, about 90% women, young laborers. So all in all, what I learned from the field visits is only FDIs, relying on FDIs is a lesson. So we need to also integrate with local investors. That's one lesson I took. The other one is, why are investors crowding in real estate? Why are they crowded in trade? What are the challenges? I think there is a need to have a closer look in supporting investors to manufacturing, given that manufacturing is a must going forward for Ethiopia. Yeah, with that then, I will invite entrepreneurs, 5 entrepreneurs, we pick them. They will come one after the other. We will speak 5 to 7 minutes. And the investors are Professor Tsegaye, Yeamlaksira, Dagmawi, Sara, and Heleanna. In the order I call you, it would be great if you come in the order of my mentioning your name. Come talk about 5 minutes and share your experience, how these ideas spark in your mind, and then how you implement it, you put your ideas into action. And I thank you very much for your attention.
My name is Tsegaye. I'm a professor of landscape ecology here in the United States. I have lived in the United States for over 30 years. The first time I came to Ethiopia, it was around 2011. And it's a long story, but one of the first things that I noticed was access to clean energy. I don't know how many of you know about this. Around 60,000 women and children die every year. 5 million women and children suffer respiratory diseases. If I come to most of the Ethiopian household, I will be sure to get a charcoal stove there. To supply the charcoal stove to urban areas in Ethiopia, the equivalent of 29,000 hectares of forest cleared every year. And the only clean cook stove in Ethiopia is called luggage. And it was designed in 1990. And the thermal efficiency of that cook stove is 2, very low in terms of tier. So I decided I'm going to do something about it. So I spent the first 4 or 5 years designing cook stoves, highly clean cook stoves. And then I came to Ethiopia, and I spent 4 years trying to find a space to manufacture it. At the end, I was able to secure a space, a rental space at Bolelam Industrial Park. And currently we manufacture clean cook stoves and fuel pellets that power them. That's my story. Now, I don't know whether this is inspirational or not, but to do it, I had to take a loan against my house in the United States. I took large sums of money, loan from my friends. I owe my friends a minimum of $600,000 to do it. And we have been operational for the last 4 years, and we are still have not making a break-even. And the question is very simple. People cannot afford clean cook stove. Forget about the poor. The average government worker is not capable of purchasing a 3,000 birr clean cook stove. As simple as that. We have gone to international donor organizations. We have gone to local institutions. We have gone everywhere to see if any one of these institutions could provide microcredit for the poor. The answer is no. So what is going on? You know, I have told you my story, but I want to generalize it a little bit. What is going on? Can Ethiopia be a manufacturing hub? The problem is exactly in the title itself. Ethiopia is a big country. How many of you know about the scaling effects of things? No, I'm not trying to be a teacher here. But if you want to do something, you will need to start small. Then you might be able to scale up. And let me tell you what a meteorologist physicist said a while ago, in the 1960s. It's called the butterfly effect. When a butterfly moves its wings in Brazilian Amazon, Texas may experience a tornado. In other words, small changes in one place can generate huge effects. But we don't do this here. Everybody talks at the scale of Ethiopia. The donor organization, I have, I'm old enough to know this. Before I became a professor, I used to be a plant breeder in Ethiopian Agricultural Institute. If I take this report, change the date, the authors, I will get exactly the same report. The same thing. And this is true if you look at the World Bank. This is true if you look at the Ethiopian government. Everybody produces a report. Everybody. And we get together here to talk about it. I will conclude by saying a couple of things. By the time you guys are done with this meeting, an average of 8 hours, 55 Ethiopian women and children have died. 500 Ethiopian women and children are seeking medical care. I don't know what I wrote. Let me see. About 26 hectares of forest are cleared today. So, my colleagues, please, this is easy, especially with artificial intelligence now, ChatGPT and what have you. I can generate 10 of these reports. 10 of them. Can we do something about it? The donors' time scale, the donors' agenda is different from the government's agenda. I have had my share of grants, small grants. You get $300,000, but you are asked to provide the entire World Fund. It has to empower women. It has to mitigate climate change. It has to do a whole bunch of things for $300,000. Then you spend about 30% of your time trying to report those things. The Ethiopian government, by staying up in that scale, is paralyzed. So, a very small advice to everybody. Let's not talk about Ethiopia. No one has the mind, the capability to solve Ethiopia's problem. But we can all solve small problem at a time. So for the donors I ask, please focus on one sector that you want to contribute to. For the Ethiopian government who represent them here, please stop talking about Ethiopia. Focus on one small thing that you could do. As I said,
that may have a butterfly effect and may transform the country because of the emergent properties associated with those things. Without that, my son, not my son, my grandson will stand right here and repeat the things that I just said. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is a tough time slot because everybody's a bit tired from lunch, but hopefully Tsegaye energized everybody, so it should be a little fun. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Yeamlaksira Worku. I am the owner of Koba Business Group, and it's such a pleasure to be here. Before I start, I wanted to ask everybody a quick question. Who here thinks Italian leather shoes is amazing? By show of hands. Italian leather shoes. Okay, so, the more interesting question here is, who has ever owned Italian leather shoes? Okay, much fewer people, right? I've never had Italian leather shoes, but I could definitely tell you how it feels, how amazing it is, how crisp the leather is, how it smells. Why is that? It is because of a good product with a better branding and marketing strategy. We've been hearing about Italian shoes all our lives, and everybody's an aspirational goal, right? So most of us wholeheartedly believe in the craftsmanship of an Italian shoemaker, and we all want to have it. And we also believe in how amazing Italy is, just because of the branding they've been able to put out there. That is what I set out to do with my company for Ethiopia. When I started building Koba, I wanted to build a brand that could put the name of Ethiopia out there, same as the Italian shoes has. Koba is a lifestyle brand involved in diverse sectors like garment manufacturing, printing, and distribution of honey. I know we're in very different sectors, but it all makes sense at the end, don't worry. So Koba was born in my third year of college. And I was born and raised in Ethiopia, but I went to college in the US and I was studying engineering there. One of the most baffling parts about being there was I knew so much about their country, but one of the interesting parts about it, and the biggest culture shock for me, was I knew so much about their country, but they knew very little about me. So I would get very random questions like, if I had a pet lion, or if I lived in a tree, or some random questions like if I could really run fast. And to be honest, I can run fast, but it was still a very annoying question. But one common thing that always happened was everybody used to love the Ethiopian scarves I used to wear throughout the very cold winter seasons, or my traditional dresses I wore to a lot of our formal events. And when I meet everybody, every single person that saw it always asked where I got it from, what it was made from, and how they can get it. So that showed me there was an opportunity out there that we can give the rest of the world. We have the capacity, the knowledge, and the resources to give the rest of the world something really good, something they can love. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give the world a product worth loving and admiring with bold letters that said, made in Ethiopia. So I wanted Koba, my company, my brand, to be for Ethiopia what the Italian shoes was for Italy. It was gonna be an excellent country ambassador. That's what the brand needed to be. We needed an ambassador out there to tell the rest of the world how amazing we are without shoving it down everybody's throat that we were never colonized, we had Aksum and everything. We needed to show them instead of just telling them how amazing we are. So of course, after college, I had a couple of detours. I got into banking, worked at Goldman Sachs, came back to Ethiopia, worked at a lot of engineering companies. As I said, I studied engineering in school. But a couple of years ago, I was able to get back to working on my passion, which was building this brand, Koba. So I bought 2 machines, got a little room in the back of my mom's house, started sewing stuff, marketing it, selling it in the market. And finally, now we've been able to grow the company from 2 machinery to a company that employs more than 50 people and has 6 outlet stores all over Addis Ababa. And that deserves a clap, guys. Thank you. So one of the advantages of being an entrepreneur in Ethiopia is you can start something in a very, very small, to little to no capital, right? I started maybe with 50,000 Ethiopian birr, which is, what, less than $500 right now? and we've been able to grow to a big capital. So we've been able to grow to something significant. But in the same token, some of the challenges in Ethiopia is after you get to a certain level, and the challenges have been discussed very thoroughly throughout the morning sessions, is that once you get to a certain level, access to capital becomes nearly impossible to get. So it becomes a challenge to scaling, a challenge to be competing in the international market. The other part of the challenges we face is obviously the educated manpower that you need to be able to have a really good team that can actually get you to the next level. And the last part, of course, is raw material, because in order for us to export to the US, to export to Europe, it's not only that our craftsmanship and our systems need to be better, but also the materials we made the products with has to be excellent. So that's why I guess I appreciate forums like this where we're discussing some of the problems we're facing as small and medium-sized enterprises, or actually just the manufacturing sector as a whole, and maybe we can find solutions to our collective problems. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope you guys all become patrons to the Koba brand and help us represent us in the international market. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Those are a couple of tough acts to follow. I was informed about this conference the day before yesterday, and I was informed that I'm going to speak today, so I'm not as prepared as my colleagues, but I'll try to tell you a little bit about myself and my company. So, like Yeamlaksira, I was born and raised in Addis, but went abroad for college and came back in 2012. At that time, Ethiopia had a very promising trajectory business-wise. The GDP per capita growth, as most of you know, was double digits, and we were really seeing that on the ground. A lot of businesses growing, flourishing, and expanding. So me and my partners decided we need to be part of the story. We wanted to value add. We wanted to enter manufacturing. But what should we do was the question. So we analyzed a lot of different manufacturing sectors, from textiles to agro-processing to even automobile assembly. They all required a lot of capital, a lot of expertise, and a lot of domain knowledge. So we're like, the next best thing you could do is, let's try to enter the supply chain, as some speakers have brought up today. So we're like, let's try to supply some of these factories. So we approached them, we found some plastic jute bag manufacturers. We're like, what do you need? They're like XYZ. So we managed to raise a little capital from friends, from family, and we imported their raw material and started supplying them. They would recommend us to other factories, and that way we kind of got a better idea of the landscape, the manufacturing landscape. Eventually, we landed on a very, at that time, novel sector for us, which was confectionery. Candies, toffees, chewing gum, lollipops. We noticed that there was a huge market in Ethiopia and almost 100% imported. So we're like, we looked into this. The barriers to entry were relatively low at the time. It's something that we can finance from our existing import raw material business. So we delved into it. And we asked, what can we do differently that would make us successful? So we focused on branding, we focused on product development, we focused on trying to reach the end consumer as opposed to supplying to wholesalers, supplying to large markets. And in that regard, we have managed to build a good presence in the market. We have a diverse set of brands that are well received and that are growing from time to time. So that's the story in a nutshell. The opportunities in Ethiopia at that time were very vast. They still are. It's a large market, a large population, but as the previous speaker mentioned, 100 million people does not mean 100 million consumers. What we have learned is the Ethiopian market is very segmented. So if you don't have a very good knowledge of the route to market, if you don't know which consumers can afford to buy what, if you can't make a product that's both affordable and meets the basic quality criteria that people are looking for, you won't have access to 100 million people. And in that regard, the opportunities are also the challenges. And when it comes to the challenges, I think a lot of them have been raised today. Access to finance, you know, a very intense regulatory regime from the government where they assume that we're operating at the level of European manufacturers. You know, that definitely needs to be addressed. There's not a lot of focus on capacity building. As we know from the stories of the tiger economies, even from the West, you know, in the early 20th century, if a manufacturer can't build capacity, if they can't build internal systems and understand and have a strong route to market, there's no way they can export. It's a dream to export. We are competing with firms in Asia, even in other parts of Africa, that have 20, 30, 40 years of experience in manufacturing, where they have procured the experts, the knowledge, over time in a very tedious manner to understand their market and to better market their product. So manufacturers in Ethiopia need support in terms of financing, but more importantly, the government needs to incentivize business people for them to see manufacturing as an attractive proposal. Right now it's not, as previous speakers have alluded to. If you come and consult me, would you do manufacturing again? I honestly wouldn't. I'm in the business, I'm invested, I love it, but for me, if I'm a strict capitalist and I want to return on my investment, I would focus on real estate, I would focus on trading, I would focus on sectors where my finances are going to be more secure. Manufacturing is a major gamble, and then taking into account the political and societal context of Ethiopia, it's even a harder sell, because manufacturing implies a large market base. With real estate, I'm selling to people in Addis, there's an affluent market, there's buying power. If I'm manufacturing, I have regional distributors all across the country, in the south, in the north, and these people are all prone to what happens to the social upheaval, to the political upheaval, to the wars. And I've seen my market in Mekelle closed for 2 years. I've seen my traders in Amar region now who can't buy from us. So manufacturing has to be seen in the context of both economic, social, political stability, and also in the context of supporting capacity building. More than finance, I would focus on capacity building. How do you develop your internal structures? I had the opportunity to talk to Ms. Flora earlier, and she was telling me about how in Kenya she managed to build a strong and big organization by focusing on her team, building capacity within her team, building the systems, and then understanding her market and her customers. We need to give Ethiopian manufacturers that opportunity, and we need to empower them to do so. And I think that will solve a lot of the problems. So that's my two-piece. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sara Seyoum. I'm the founder of Buskalites. So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey, how I started and now how I get here. So professionally, I am an architect. So before I joined architecture, as a little kid growing up in Ethiopia and growing up in a family with the free-spirited parents, so my dad used to encourage all of us to be free and to do whatever we want, that we can get whatever we want, even if they were not educated, but they believe in knowing and digging and searching and exploring. So while experiencing that, I was doing some crafts, paperwork as a child. So people around me and relatives and family advised me it would be great if I joined architecture. I didn't know much about architecture by that time, and I started digging and I learned a lot about it. And by the time I joined university, I went to Arba Minj University, and unlucky for me, there was no architecture department that day I join the university, I found out, and I was quite disappointed, but in 2 weeks of time, the department got opened. And it was a lot of challenge to join the department because they only wanted 30 students and 4 female, so there were more than 300 competitors. It was very tough, but I got lucky, and I joined architecture. And while learning, I have learned so many things that I was not expecting. And then I finished university and I joined one government corporation, one government enterprise that is doing more of manufacturing. It was an interior design, I cannot say interior company, but they were doing furnitures or interior elements. So I was assigned as a product designer. So I used to do all the furniture designs and they used to be manufactured within the company. So that gave me a wide open eye that I can do whatever I want, which I can design, could be manufactured within the house locally, and so and so. So learning about myself was quite a long journey because knowing about having a creative background gives you a whole lot of idea, but you have to, you know, combine it together and do something. So I have learned that I'm interested in the manufacturing business, but I was digging more what can fit in the business, because being in the architecture department, there are a lot of things that you can manufacture, but nobody was talking about lightings. As you can see, the most beautiful element in this house is the lightings, as you can see, but there are no lighting manufacturers in Ethiopia. I'm not talking about the lampshades, the lamps, but I'm talking about the lampshades. So you can find furnitures, carpets, curtains, wall claddings, and everything being manufactured, but not lightings. So I have learned that because after I resigned from the office that I was working, I went to South Sudan. I was working in South Sudan with architecture for 5 years. Then I came back here after my return because I wanted to make money to start my business here. But apparently, after I came back here, I wanted to start the manufacturing, the lighting manufacturing, but there was a lot of things I needed to know. To learn about what I needed to do, I had to start an interior design company to know what exactly the market wants. While doing that, I have discovered there is a huge market gap between the manufacturer and the market, what the market wants. Then after I learned there is no lampshade manufacturing, then I was very excited about the idea, but it was not always about being excited about the idea. There are a lot of steps we need to know how it works, what the market wants, what is the size of the market, all the little details. And then while experimenting the interior design work, then I have learned what the client wants, why they are importing, why they are not outsourcing from the local. And there are some companies as well, which I thought they were manufacturing lampshades. I was going around and asking if they're manufacturing, and they were saying no. Then I asked, why are you not manufacturing? They gave me all the excuses. There is no material, there is no workmanship, there is no accessory, there is no this and that. Then finally, okay, I have to learn all about this. Then I started from one, where can I get the materials, where can I get the manpower, where can I get the machineries, what kind of machineries do I need, and so and so. So when I learned about that, I wanted to have a big factory, but that's not how it works again. So I have to start from zero, from small. When everybody says start small, I didn't know what it means. But I couldn't get any financing from any bank or financing companies, so I had to start with my own money. So I started this with 10,000 birr, with one lampshade. I was doing one project, and then the client went short to do a big chandelier, then I volunteered to do it with my own money, which I wanted to market my own business in their building. And it worked out so well, they were willing, and it worked out for me as well. And then that one product gave me a whole lot of lesson. I need to get accessories, I need to get materials, I need to maintain my quality, I need to know about the supply chain, the mass productivity, and so and so. Then I sat down, Sara, you gotta figure out all of this. And then step by step, I started solving one problem at a time. supply chain, the first one, quality, second one, then mass productivity, and so machineries. Then when I learned all about that, then again I said, okay, now I can buy all these machineries. No, not again. Because there are a whole lot of capital-intensive machineries. Then I thought about it. When I started experimenting, I have learned instead of buying a lot of big machineries and then keeping them in my store and then being short of, finance to run the manufacturing is not going to work. So I have decided to split it into the capital-intensive machineries and the small the small cost machineries. Then with the big machineries, I started outsourcing because I had to go all around the city and learn what kind of machines are out there, who are giving what kind of services. Because I knew that I'm not going to afford to have the factory, and no bank is going to give us, a finance just like that, because that's not how the system works. So I went all around the city and learned about what kind of machines are there, what kind of machines am I going to use, and how much is it going to cost to get the service instead of to buy the machines. Then, after I've learned that, so I started outsourcing the big machineries, and then I started buying small machineries one by one. Then it started to work well. Then now I have learned the mass productivity and the quality, then small things are remaining. Accessories. Accessories have become a problem. Then I really didn't want to import from anywhere. I want to access everything locally. Then I started designing my own accessories and then getting them manufactured within the country. Now with all those problems being solved, the business is working well. So I started manufacturing, but I didn't have a workspace. So I turned my office into a warehouse. So a lot of orders has becoming more and more, so I couldn't, fit in that space, so I had to rent out a bigger space. Now I have a bigger space, and we're doing lightings for hotels, residentials, apartments, locally. Almost 95% of the materials are being outsourced locally. The manpowers are outsourced locally. So I design the lampshade. I also have other architectural teams who designs and do the products as well. So it's quite working fair so much. But with all this, there was a gap between running the business, creating the idea, and managing the business. So programs like TAF helped me to know the difference and to manage how to manage the business, because as an entrepreneur, we usually focus on doing what we like, doing what we create. We don't focus much on the management, the finance, and everything. So this, the program that I was participating in TUF helped me in a way to learn about how to manage the business and how to run the business and how to manage the finance as well. So with all that, I'm here, even if we didn't get much financing from any banks or anything, but the business itself was growing by itself. So my whole story about doing this lighting looks like this, and the name Buska Lights came from, most of you know Kabuska Basta Jarba. So Buska is a mountain in Hamar, so when the sun sets behind the mountain, it creates a very beautiful ambience on the sky. So that's why we named it Buska Lights, and thank you very much.
Last but not least, Heleanna.
So thank you. This is an improvised speech. I was not supposed to speak today, but TED Talks are my favorite thing to watch on TV. And I have to say a few comments before I start. Number one, Dr. Tsegaye, I have an information for you from Uganda. And number two, the Caramella guy, you should never quit on Ethiopia. There is no better place to invest than this one. Number three, I didn't get what you are doing. Traditional clothes or leather shoes?
Garment manufacturing.
Garment, okay, I thought leather shoes. And number four, it's very inspiring what you have done. To start from zero and to start producing absolutely everything is incredible. My story is not like that. I inherited what I'm doing, and what I'm doing is coffee. And I'm here, I asked Ali to speak because we are fourth generation actually in Ethiopia. My grandparents came in 1887, and since the day they came, they decided to do coffee. But what I saw the last 3 years is that coffee is disappearing from the country. And why I wanted to speak is actually to make you think why we are losing the most valuable products we have and we will ever have. So why I'm saying that? Kenya has coffee, it's not good, like ours. Tanzania has coffee, it is not good as ours. Brazil has coffee, it is terrible. But we are destroying the best products God has given us. And we don't even know why. So people, you know, here are very proud, and they usually tend to dance kiskista and say we are the best. But we never ask why we are the best. So why our coffee is the best? Our coffee is the best because our forests are the best. Not only because of the varieties that we have, because varieties can be cultivated, experimented, and developed. But we have a forest that cannot be reproduced. So when we said and we hear that 27 hectares of forest are being lost every minute, it's something that we should stop and ponder as Ethiopians, as proud Ethiopians. You know, I met a lady from UN Humanitarian Aid who has provided aid to Ethiopia, and I almost grabbed her from the neck because she says we are helping people that are starving because Ethiopia is going through drought and starvation. And the question is why we are going through drought and starvation? Because we are destroying our forests. For coal is one thing, but then we are destroying the forest because somebody has been teaching us that living under the forest makes us poor, because all these years we have been poor. And we don't appreciate what we have. So I was in Guji in an amazing forest called Anasora, and the farmer in front of me had killed maybe 10 trees within a period of half an hour. So I asked him, why you cut this tree? This tree is Oda. And you know what he replied to me? I was really shocked. I said, what do you mean it's worthless? It doesn't give me anything. So I said, what do you mean? He says, well, there is no fruit. I cannot cut it for wood, but I can cut eucalyptus. It doesn't grow fast, it grows after 200 years. And I cannot use it for furniture or for manufacturing. So he destroyed it during the nighttime. The thing is, the moment you destroy the forest, you destroy the life underneath, and one of the life underneath this forest has been coffee. So if we love coffee, and we are proud of our coffee, because we took the coffee to the world, including Kenya, we should learn how to preserve it rather than dancing kiskista and saying we have the best coffee in the world. We should all stop and wonder why we have the best coffee in the world, why we are blessed with what we have been given. And Ethiopia is not only having the best coffee in the world, it has the best sesame, the best black cumin, the best long pepper, and some of the best spices used for medicinal purposes, like feto, which we are not using or exporting or cultivating. Instead, we are destroying with our own hand, whether for real estate development or for wood development, something that we will never be able to recover. So when I leave from here, I want all of you to think, what are we doing for our future products, for our future survival? Are we going to become Brazil with coffee plantations and fertilization, or are we going to preserve what we have been given? Ali, thank you for the time you gave me, and I really hope you think about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. I think we're done. If there are any reflections or comments from the floor, from all of you. Yeah, any comment? Not, then Ali will close the conference.
Give a closing. First of all, I wanted to thank all of you for coming here, and especially you survivors. Haile and I had a big bet. He said people will eat and leave. And I said, no, Haile, we have tough, resilient people in Ethiopia who will stay. So all of you have made me win my bet. So thank you for staying and for talking. So 3 points in closing. I just wanted to kind of summarize. The first is that what we heard from the morning session, our presentation from our Kenyan friend from Bangladesh, was like, there's a lot of international stories that can be shared for Ethiopia, and many countries, geography, history, politics, or circumstance. You do not inherit them, you can move beyond them, as we've heard. The second message that I want to share is from all these beautiful, lovely entrepreneurs who have come up with stoves, coffee, garments, and these things. There's a spirit that you can do, and I appreciate very much the point, even though it's critical of our report, I appreciate it, the point that small things have a big effect, the butterfly effect. And I just wanted to tell a story confirming my view of the butterfly effect, which is called the O-ring theory. And in the 1980s in America, there was the Challenger, which went in space, and then it disintegrated. And everybody could not understand, and all the NASA engineers could not understand why this beautiful technological model disintegrated. And they looked and they looked and they looked and they couldn't understand. Finally, they discovered that there was a very small thing called an O-ring, and it was rubber. And that morning in Florida was very cold. And so that rubber, tiny rubber that connected two pipes, it had a little bit of a crack. And because the rubber had a crack, the rubber gave way and the pipes hit each other. Because the pipes hit each other, there was a strong rebound. Because there was a strong rebound, there was a tiny fire, there was a larger fire, there was a major fire, and there was an explosion. The O-ring theory of economic development is that small actions have huge effects. Whether it was the decision of the Singaporean government to pay the public sector the same as the private sector, whether it was America's decision to have land markets, whether the Bangladeshis sending 129 entrepreneurs in 1980 to Busan, Korea, to learn how to do garments. So the theme is that things are possible. We want to end, that with the right entrepreneurship, the right reform, you can demonstrate an O-ring. And so my final point is, in spite of the macro problems, in spite of the security, in spite of the geopolitics in a world that's difficult, there's a lot of possibility in Ethiopia, And my last point is Mauritius. I went to Mauritius a couple of years ago, and I asked the guy, how did you become rich? You guys are in the middle of nowhere. He said, the Indians, the Chinese, and the Franco-Mauritians. He said, we didn't like each other, but we figured out that in order to become rich, we have to work with each other. So I want to leave this conference with a spirit of hope and optimism, and thank you all for your attendance.